Welcome back to RLCS Overtime, ladies and gentlemen. Been a great show so far. I think I've said that too many times. I said it a bunch.
But it is a great show.
You're not lying. You're just repetitive.
I'm just, you know, it's just you.
It's not your fault that we're always great.
So far. It's not my fault that they're always great. Why would it be a fault? I don't understand anything. Supersonic Lookback, guys. This week marks the 1-year anniversary of the Season 1 LAN, which is still, in my books, one of the most magical things that's ever happened in my life. Was absolutely surreal in many ways. Am I alone on this?
No, that was
right. Okay. Yes.
It was absolutely amazing, and then to see like a team like Cosmic win the whole thing, where Kronovi was the best player in the world from the very start. Then he had some trouble, and then they still win it. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Script, all according to script. Killed it.
Yeah, it was also our first time in front of a live audience, which is just something you really can't put into words.
That
like
energy.
Like the first time, because I think I was on the first match, and when it cut to our live camera, and you just heard an audience start to cheer just because they knew, like it was the first time kind of seeing us in a live setting, and also they knew the game was going to start soon. It was just one of those like, you get like the shivers.
It was all because the game was going to start soon.
Well, and like we were seated up in a box, and the crowd's right here. And when the goals would happen, we'd feel the subwoofer from this side, and we'd feel the crowd from this side, and it was just like energy. You know, it was this amazing experience to be there live. But we had some great matches. We want to look back. What's funny about energy?
I don't know, just like sandwich, like energy. Yeah,
right there.
That was your special move.
And RG, they weren't even a team at the time. Kings of Urban. They were under that name, their community name, still the best community name.
I still love Kings of Urban. Yeah.
Speaking of Kings of Urban, we're gonna take a look at some of the matches that we saw from Season 1. Just go back, just gonna reminisce on some cool things that happened. NRG, no, not NRG. Dang it! I just said that they were the Kings of Urban. Kings of Urban versus Genesis. This was the last match of league play, and so many implications. If this game went like every different variation, because we were playing series of 5s back in Season 1, so they were going to play 5 games. Every variation on how that game could have gone saw a different seeding and different teams. So it was Genesis, Kings of Urban, and Maka NA who were trying to make it in, and only 2 of those teams could make it into the playoffs, and then the other team would not have any chance of making it to the LAN. So every variant of how the match could go would see 2 different teams in a different order making it in. It was pretty crazy. We could take a look at a recap of how it all went down. It was pretty crazy.
I've never seen a matchup mean so much for so many teams. It's not just these two. There are 2 teams waiting to see how this goes.
We've been saying the entire group stage that every game matters, and it all comes down to this one. We're keeping the pressure on.
And those tiebreakers, to be fair, were very nerve-wracking too. So I was like, wait a minute, I think Maki can make it in 5 different variations of the 6. And then, of course, that one variation happened where Genesis wins 3-2, and it gets both them and Kings of Urban into the playoffs. And that was with Kings of Urban as the 4 seed. So they went into the playoffs as the 4 seed and wound up winning the whole thing, obviously. So it was a crazy series. And honestly, like, we know it's bad Rocket League when Quinn Lobdell was on the field.
Gosh. I mean, it's funny, you go back and watch that one out. If you go back and watch the Season 1 games, like, it's a significantly different Rocket League than we see right now. The meta has changed so much, but just these last games here were so crazy as they're able to find the win. Genesis, nobody expected them to get the win over Kings of Urban, but they actually managed to get the win, which pushes them in. And it was crazy at the end. I remember just like we both had like a sigh of relief. Like, they're both going to make it to Hollywood. Sorry for Maka and NA who didn't get to play, but the 2 teams that controlled their fate made it through. And it was pretty crazy to watch.
It showed throughout the entire series too. Like these guys really battled it out. It was back and forth the entire time. It came down to the last second. Like, and for both of them to be like, you know, we fought it out hard. We both get to go in. Like it was like a cool way to congratulate them.
And I think like us when we were casting this series of 5, it was interesting because a lot of times once the 3 wins had happened, the last 2 wins we even watched teams kind of just not really try as much. People weren't used to the series of 5 or like playing the entire full series as opposed to a best of. So this was even like it was so cool to watch a team fight for every single game because it really did matter. The seeding changed every result from 4-1 to 3-2 to the 2-3 on the other side and then the 4-1 on the other side. Like they all did different seedings. It was so cool.
Yeah, and the series went back and forth. Like Kings of Urban takes game 1, Genesis takes game 2, Kings of Urban takes game 3, Genesis takes game 4. So we're like, we still don't know what's going to happen until game 5 when Genesis finally was able to win 2 back-to-back.
And plus, that was a huge upset. Like Kings of Urban, sure, they didn't play that great throughout that season, but everyone knew that they were a top team, and they showed it in the playoffs. So Genesis just coming out and beating Kings of Urban was a huge deal as well. And honestly, a lot of people thought Genesis was one of those borderline teams that probably shouldn't have made it, but they came in 4th in both seasons and made it to LAN, and then they had some magic there as well.
Yeah, they did. They absolutely did. They got the reverse sweep over Maka, one of the first reverse sweeps we ever saw. So they actually placed better than Kings of Urban did, who had a very, very rough first LAN. Very rough first 2 LANs, honestly, for Jacob and company. But the first LAN was characterized by iBuyPower Cosmic and Kronovi. We talked about the finals were iBuyPower versus Flipside, the titans of their respective regions. We could not have asked for a better finals. And the fact that it was in North America meant we could not ask for a better team to win. But the match that was most interesting, the finals were really interesting, but I think the thing that was the coolest moment, the most iconic moment of Season 1, and one of the most iconic moments of RLCS in general was iBuyPower Flipside in the winner's bracket early on. We can see how that match went down. It was absolutely one for the Bucks.
Flipside Tactics, iBuyPower Cosmic. This is the clash of the titans we've all been waiting for. Oh my goodness, Lawler.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing about this series was the implications that were coming in. So you talk about okay, this iBuyPower team just lost Gambit. Gambit stepped out. He's pretty much what made them look so strong in the first quarter. They come in quarter 2, aren't really having that good a performance because of the way the points matched up in
Season 1. They didn't even make it into the playoffs.
Yeah. So their points carried them through, and we all came in and were like, okay, they haven't really had any strong performances. EU is a really heavy favorite, let alone being Flipside being the favorite by far. And then they come out and pull this. A game that
360 no scope from Kronovi.
Yeah, like it was nuts. There was so many like individual highlight plays. There was moments. The crowd was really loud. Like people like Lachinio just showing how strong he really was with like crazy redux. Like Kronovi sat back on defense.
But this was the best moment of Season 1.
He's carrying it. Kronovi, they could put it in.
I will never
stay alive. We go to Game 5.
It's never gonna happen.
Legitimately, I go back to that moment. I'm like, man, how can I sound that excited to get like that was just so genuine, you know? It was a really, really good moment. And then here at the end,
they're down 1-0 with 14 seconds left, and they come back to win it. It just seemed like
they win it in regulation too. They scored 2 goals in 14 seconds.
Yeah, it just there was something about that game that was just like, this is Rocket League esports. Like it felt so real at that moment. It was a big turning point. Like everybody knew, like this is why people watch this game. It's so exciting. It just felt like a perfect culmination after everything we went through the entire season to have EU and NA fighting for each other in the winners bracket. Who goes on? Like we have an underdog. We have a sub, which is now an ongoing theme, I guess. Like.
Especially at LAN, 2 of the 3 World Championship teams have played with a sub instead of their full starting roster. It's pretty crazy to look back at those things and think that was just a year ago. It feels like a long time ago because we do 2 seasons in one year. But man, what a game that one was! And to see the North Americans come out as they were the underdogs on North American soil, and it is like when you're in North America, the crowd's more cheering for North America, of course, because they want to see their hometown crowd win. So it was really just an amazing experience.
It was a lot of fun, especially because up until then, like Kronovi and whoever he was playing with were just kind of #1 for so long, up until like the RLCS happened, and then something kind of triggered. He paired up with Gambit. At the time, Gambit was nuts.
It was the all-star roster of him, Lachinio, and Gambit.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like, well, what do you do against this? This isn't even fair. It's like a team that has too much money and just buys up all the best, best people.
Crow dropped
the New York Yankees
of Rocket League, basically. He just dropped that dead weight of Sad Jr., obviously, not me. but like for him in that dream team, and they look like it throughout that whole first qualifier. But then Gambit had his issues. They bring it over 0, and they come in 5th, so no playoffs. So they drop all the way down to 3rd seed, and then everyone's like, oh, they're playing Flipside. It's over.
Yeah.
And then that's the only team that's ever had a perfect LAN. They won all their series, didn't go into lowers at all, so it was insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting that it's been like just the way that series, if you were confused, if you did not watch Season 1, we played 2 different like stages of the regular season. You earned points in both of them. And so they had done so well with Gambit in the first one that they had enough points to carry them through, even though they didn't make it into the playoffs of the second one. And that's why they were able to make it through, in case you're confused of why they were able to make it into the LAN without making it into the playoffs. It's worked different back then. But guys, other series that just throughout the history of Rocket League, maybe not Season 1, maybe Season 2.
Well, I got one from Season 1. It's called Supersonic History. Supersonic Avengers. They went into the playoffs, and they were the only team, because of the point system between the 2 regions, that had a chance to make it to the World Championships based on their performance. But they had to win the whole thing. And, of course, they have to play Flipside. So they go, and, like, that's not an easy match at all. And, honestly, Game 1, they get destroyed. 6 goals to 1. So Flipside's like, all right.
Cool.
Nice and easy. Doomsy's probably crying in the corner. They battle back. They go up 3-2, and then Cooksier. They win 8-0 in Game 6, and Cooksier scores 7 goals. We have never seen more than 5 goals in a game, and that's even to now. So
by a single player?
Yeah, by a single player. So he scored 7 goals, but then Supersonic Avengers, it was the dream, and they won it. Unfortunately, they had to play Northern right after. The two giants of Europe, so they didn't make it in, but it made it really exciting.
They came out 5 points short of making it into the playoffs, or into the LAN. It was absolutely nuts. I was the only one who actually predicted Supersonic Avengers would be flip side.
That is true.
Of course you'd remember that. A year later.
But it's still my favorite
He's been waiting until this moment for that.
And that was the first of many times Doomsday will break our hearts.
Oh, yes.
That was the beginning of his...
But I was so happy because then I met Vogan and I took a selfie with him and it had the other two Flying Dutchmen behind me. And all I did was just at Doomsday and just sent it. It's still my favorite tweet. It still is.
Why are you such a mean man?
I love Doomsday. He knows it's a joke. I might have cried a bit.
It's the reverse sweeps that are the really iconic ones for me. The Makeda Aces reverse sweeping orbit in season 2 LAN in Amsterdam.
That was nuts.
That was amazing. Just the way that it was like, it was so close, and then like at the 0-second goal, Moses clears it away, and it's like, okay, the ball's rotating back around the field. There's no chance, and somehow Makeda Aces pops it back in the middle. They take the shot. We go to overtime.
That's the moment I don't think I'll ever sound that cool again.
Yeah, right.
You hear me on that, and I'm losing my mind.
And that never looked that cool. That picture of Axel and Gibbs on the desk.
that was
just like, we're all losing our minds collectively.
And that was when Europe was like, hey, we are the dominant region, sweeping the entire first round as well. So
I think they go way back in history. My favorite moment is probably shot around the world.
Yeah,
but I think
you were in that game.
Yeah, Gibbs lost in that game, didn't he?
I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it was really funny. We were like 60-0 at that point in best of series, so we've never lost.
No big deal.
And then it's on MLG. It's the first like big tournament that's streamed. And honestly, like as soon as that went in, me, Crow, and Sed were like, that's exactly how we wanted to lose. That's the perfect way to lose. So we were really happy. We obviously would have preferred to win, but it was a cool way to go out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's around the time people really started to see how fun close competitive Rocket League could be, like getting that true the sports feel of like this is like
when you're first like 0-second rule.
Yeah, when you're watching the clock like count down and you're like getting so excited. You know, one goal can happen at any given time so long as it doesn't touch the ground. It was such an amazing moment, and like, you know, I don't know, like, we haven't seen him in a long time, but Cal Mask was the one that made that goal, and you guys. On the OG KOU.
Yeah, with Fireburner still. And Gambit. So there's been a lot of roster drops since then. But.
Which, I mean, for anyone who has not been around since then, who's just joined us in the recent seasons of RLCS, this was the first huge tournament, as you said, and it was a 0-second goal casted by Puckett and Benson, the MLG casters. And it was my favorite part was like the ball gets cleared at like 5 seconds, and Puckett's like, oh, that's it. And Benson's like, I don't know, that ball's up in the air, 3, 2, and he's counting it down, and then it wraps around and he puts in a buzzer beater, and KOU wins, and they lose their minds. And I remember watching it live and being like, huh, this could absolutely be an esport. And I feel like that's what made it the shot heard around the world, is everyone was like, wow, that was amazing. And if I could see more moments like that, this would be incredible.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I saw fans from both lands were like, that's how I got into Rocket League. Like, that's how I started watching, because of just how epic it was.
Yeah, absolutely. But guys, been fantastic stuff. Always love going back and looking at the history of Rocket League. Everything just... It's just so much fun. We could sit here and talk about this all day, but we got more stuff to talk about. NBC, it's a big deal right now. The 2v2 Universal Open. We'll have some details on that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. It'll be fun.